Alright, it's recording. I'm in a train now. As you can see, showing outside. Let me see if you can see Rotterdam. No, you can't see Rotterdam here, I'm too low, but nevertheless. Okay. So, what I said in my previous video, I'll be talking about ancestral spirits here. First of all, I want to make a few things clear. A monitoring spirit is an evil spirit that is monitoring someone. Just that. It's more in the function. A familiar spirit is a spirit that's more familiar, intimately involved with the affairs of a certain family. And an ancestral spirit is a demon spirit that has been around throughout multiple generations. So it's more in the function, okay? But they're all evil spirits. That's first. And secondly, if you have someone living in a region that's in a desert, then probably at night it will be very cold for them. And they might be quite uncomfortable during the nights. And this discomfort during the nights may cause sleeping problems for them. Okay, it can be that you have ancestors still 5 or 6 generations may also lived in that same region. So it's logical that those ancestors had the similar issues they are having, because living in a desert where it's cold at night, well, it will have an effect on you. Anyone. Even people that didn't grow up in a desert in that region, when they come to that region, they will face a similar effect. Or you have someone that lives near the sea, and during the winter there's less fish. Well, anyone that comes to that region will face the same issue. So just because someone has similar issues as their ancestors, that does not mean that they have an ancestral spirit. Nor does it mean that they have a spell or a generational curse on them. So we need to look at facts, okay? Because a lot of people, they are mixing truth and fiction. I'm not into that. I want to keep it with facts and with reality, okay? So again, I'm going to repeat it. Just because someone may have similar issues as their ancestors, that does not prove the presence of an ancestral curse upon them. No, it doesn't. Okay? So, I've said it. Let's continue now. I'm going to give an illustration, because as you know of me, I enjoy giving illustrations in my videos. And the goal of this illustration, as with the other illustration I've given, is to illustrate what I want to bring over onto you. Jesus used parables, well, the same way I am making parables for you, okay? Let's say that you had a guy named Janus. He lived in Germania Inferior. There's a Roman province, which is basically the region that today is called the Netherlands, Belgium, and small parts of Germany, of Western Germany. Janus, that's a Latin name. His parents grew up in a town that was founded by the Romans. The town's name was Dordracum. The name has something to do with the dragon. Well, they were pagans anyway. So Janus grew up in Dordracum. And Janus was physically abused by his older brother when he was a kid. It left an imprint on his mind that he had to be careful for people with muscles, because his elder brother he was into fitness and weighting heavy weights, so that's the image he had on his mind. So when he grew older, he had this urge to be violent. You know, why? Because he was traumatized and he was expecting to be victimized anytime. So he began to practice weights also. He began to imitate the brother that abused him. That older brother also had alcohol problems, had his own issues. Nevertheless, Janus interpreted what happened to him as if it was his fault. Well, it wasn't. Nevertheless, the event, he forgot about it, but the trauma was still located in his brains. So he still had this feeling of threat, even though there was no danger. But he had this urge to become muscle, so it happened. And there's nothing wrong with sport, with fitness and all that. There's nothing wrong with it. However, Janus did it with an ill motive. What happened when Janus was 22? He got into a fight and he wounded someone. He made someone crippled. That shocked him, but nevertheless, he felt a relief. Because now it was him in advantage. Instead of him being victimized. So yes, what he did was horrible. He was shocked by it because he acted out his rage of what happened to him. But because he had this relief and this counterfeit joy, it's not real joy, this euphoria, I can better say, of him being in charge, he began to rationalize what he did, and that was his part that was wrong. He began to rationalize why he did it. He began to say, well, that guy was annoying, he was on my property, began to make some excuse for it. What happens now is that when Janus did that, the evil spirit that was hanging around now had a hold on his life. And that evil spirit went into him. Because Janus just affirmed and confirmed a curse upon himself. So now that demon now was the parasite that entered into him. And now that demon fed off the negative energy of that trauma. And here's the thing, every time Janus acted out, or anytime Janus became upset with rage, the demon fed off the negative energy. So now the demon kept on reminding him of certain things of the past, and the demon kept on, whispering thoughts in telepathically into his brains. For example, if someone would say hi to him, the demon would send some thoughts to his brains that the individual he thinks he's above you. And that thought alone agitated Janus. Janus began to think, who the heck does the guy think he is? So that's how the demon operated. Now, of course, Janus is responsible because he's the one denying reality. Both the trauma, both the consequences of the trauma, and both his own part in affirming the trauma. Even if he's not aware of the evil spirit, he's still responsible because he is in agreement with it. And so Janus has children. His wife is afraid of him, so she doesn't cheat. Anyway, he has several children, but he acts out against his children also. And the same thing that happens to him is now doing to his children. And now the children grow up with anger towards Janus, but they can never express the anger because it's their father. They have to respect and honor their father. Janus dies at age 74. I'm just making some up. He dies at an old age. The children bury him, they are sad. What happens now is that Janus died. He did not become born again, so he's lost. But he's the one that rejected Christ. That evil spirit that lived inside Janus' body and also hovered around Janus, that evil spirit fed himself for about, almost 65 years with the negativity that's around Janus. And it's when Janus was in his early 20s that he really could possess Janus. But nevertheless, for about more than 6 decades, that evil spirit fed with the negative energy that came from Janus, that was around. And the evil spirit also was responsible for keeping the negative cloud around him, in order that he could remain there. So, what happens now is that that evil spirit now lost a host. He lost his home to live, basically. So the demon already knew that soon that guy is going to die. Okay, so the demon caused him. It's Janus that did that. He's responsible, but the demon caused him to inflict harm on his own children and to force his children to endure the trauma for years. So now what happens now? That demon, after Janus dies, he simply enters into one of the children. The one that's not delivered from the trauma. The one that's easiest to manipulate. He will enter into that child. What happens now, those other children, what happens to them? Other evil spirits that also have their chance, who are also friends of that other evil spirit that entered Janus at a young age, they are now taking their opportunity to enter into those other children. But now, that spirit that was in Janus now is into his son named Brutus. Well, the Germanic tribe there had a custom of using Latin names, so he's now into Brutus. And Brutus is not violent, but he's very fearful. And that fearfulness is also keeping that spirit in. Brutus dies at age 104, but now the demon enters into his great-grandchild who is only 15. And she now, who has been sexually molested now, is an open door for that spirit to enter into. Then that great-granddaughter, when she's in her 80s and she dies, that spirit enters into her grandson. You see how this is going? So after about 800 years, there was this woman called Yoke or Yoyonica. They call her Yoke. That's a shortening of her name. Yoke, she lived in, let me say, the year 200. She lived in the 1100s. That's in the middle of the Middle Ages. And she's a tailor. She lives in Dordrecht. Well, because Dordrecht is the Germanic form of Dordrecht. The city still exists today in the Netherlands. So she lives in Dordrecht. She's not married yet. Nevertheless, she feels this anger, this hostility inside of her that she still wants to attack other people. And now she takes responsibility and says, okay, what's wrong? Something's not wrong. Something's not right with me. But the thing is, her parents have always been kind to her. And she also has siblings that are quite fond of her, so she can't understand what's going on. Nevertheless, Yoke, she's a Christian also. She goes to her pastor and she talks about her issues and all of that. And the pastor has the Holy Spirit, of course, or else he couldn't be a pastor. The pastor also experiences spiritual issues, and the pastor recognizes that, hold on a minute, this is not something natural, this is something spiritual. The pastor begins to pray. And once the pastor is praying, the demon begins to manifest. Now remember, Yoke is a believer. The demon is not inside her. The demon cannot possess her, but the demon is around her. So when he begins to pray over her, the demon begins to resist, and the way he notices that Yoke begins to act strange. She has no control over herself. So the pastor is casting the spirit out, but the spirit doesn't want to leave. So the pastor, he has the anointing of the Holy Spirit. So that not everyone can do this. The pastor now addresses the demon and speaks to the demon. Why aren't you leaving her alone? The pastor commands the demon spirit to speak in Jesus' name. This demon spirit confesses, 800 years ago, I was just hovering around in the Netherlands, in this region, and it was this young boy that was beaten by his elder brother. He was traumatized. His parents didn't want to help him, so he remained hurt. And I saw it as an opportunity to attach myself. And I attached myself to all to any descendant of him that I could get a hold of. And I always made sure there was some descendant I could attach myself to. Then the apostle says, why are you attached to her? What happened to her? Then the Spirit reveals she has an unhealthy soul tie with her parents. She gives her parents too much weight into her life. And her father is still traumatized because I used to be in her grandfather, which is the father of her father. I couldn't get into the son. But because that daughter has an unhealthy tie to that man, she's easily hurt by what he says. I had a way to attach myself around her. I couldn't possess her because she has Holy Spirit inside of her, but I could put a hold on her life because she has this open door. And then the pastor addresses Yoke about it. Yoke repents, and she's delivered from that unhealthy soul tie, and the Holy Spirit is gone. And soon after that, Yoke gets married, and she's happy. Now, why did I give such a long illustration? Because I want you guys to get to understand that that's how those things work. That's how those things are happening. Unless someone is born again, filled with the Spirit, and delivered from all traumatic soul ties, unless that's the case, they are open for ancestral spirits to get a hold of them. So look, Yoke was delivered. That demon couldn't hang around her anymore. So what happened? That demon then attached, then waited for 50 years. Yoke had grandchildren, and one of the grandchildren was a young boy, and the demon caused that young boy to be traumatized by using a school teacher to harass the kid. Why did the demon do that? Because the demon knows when the child has a trauma, I have an entrance into the child. The child wasn't born again, so he couldn't get hold of it. So that happens. Now that ancestral spirit just waited. After 50 years, he could enter into another descendant. And that's how the demon has run from generation to generation. And now in 2016, there's this woman called, I'm just making something up, this woman called Evelyn. And she has this anger towards men. She calls herself a feminist, that she wants equality for women, all of that. But she's really angry at men, but she can never explain why she's angry at men. She's using the teachings of feminism as an excuse that women used to be oppressed and all of that. The real thing is, she herself doesn't understand why she has this agitation against men. It's that same ancestral spirit that has a hold of her. And I'll listen to what I'm saying here. If you're not delivered from all traumatic soul ties, you are going to have ancestral spirits harassing you also. And this is another thing I want to tell you. Everyone out there has something haunting them. When you are born again and a believer, when you are a believer, Satan himself, not a demon, not a principality, Satan himself is coming after you. Okay? If you're not born again, and you're still lost, then there's those other spirits, monitoring spirits, familiar spirits, and ancestral spirits that are coming after you. So understand this, everyone out there has something haunting them. A lot of people are not aware of that there's something that's haunting them. Others are aware, but they cannot identify that it has a spiritual origin. And some do understand that there's a spiritual origin, but they don't want to repent and become born again, so they just find a way to cope with it through witchcraft. I'm going to repeat it to you. Jesus did not return back yet. Jesus did not return back yet to the earth. That's obvious. So, those unclean spirits and Satan and all those principalities are still are still around there. And there are still many unbelievers on the earth still. So darkness is still around here on the earth. It's not permanently removed from the earth yet. So Everyone out there has something haunting them. That's why in the New Testament, the Holy Spirit makes clear that you have to be vigilant because your enemy, the devil, is going around as a roaring lion seeking whom he can devour. And something say, Rashid, you're repeating yourself, I'm doing it again. Everyone has something that haunts them. And if you think nothing's haunting you, you're delusional. You're not in reality. See, and when you are a believer, not only are there ancestral spirits that wants to capture you, now you have all kinds of spirits who just want to want to rage against you. That's why believers tend to have more struggles and problems during their lifetime than unbelievers. Does it mean that believers are bad or that they are worse off? No, it just means that they are born again, that they are saved. Because when you're not born again, evil spirits don't have to do much trouble for you because you're stuck anyway. And once you're born again and you're free, now a lot of work is being placed upon you to capture you. Well, I need to go out now. I hope this video has opened your eyes and revealed to you what's going on. I'm going to repeat it. Everyone has something haunting them. Just be alert of it and be aware of it. Okay. That if you're a believer and you want to marry someone, that individual you want to marry, if you're a man that only wants to marry, has something haunting her. If you're a female believer that man wants to marry, has something haunting him. Everyone has. Just remain in prayer. Be blessed. Shalom.